Bring them home, bring them home, bring our parents, our children home. From the dust of Afghanistan back to our arms, bring them home.
Bring them home, bring them home, bring our sons and our daughters home. From the ghettos of Baghdad back to our arms, bring them home.
Bring them.
Welcome to Peace Now. My name is Trudy Quaife. I'm a member of Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace. We're a local organization of friends and neighbors, and we've been advocating for peace and justice for over 14 years. I'm your host today, and I'm joined by John Amidon.
Hi.
John Amidon is a former Marine. He's an organizer of many things, including the Kateri Peace Conference, which he's organized for 19 years. He's a member of Veterans for Peace, former chair of the Interfaith Alliance, and he's also well known for a form of protest that he does involving civil resistance. In this form of civil resistance, he often gets arrested. Sometimes he goes to jail. So let's get right down to it, John. Could you tell us a little bit about civil resistance in the form that you've used it when you intentionally get arrested?
Sure. We don't actually intentionally get arrested when we're doing civil resistance.
Okay.
We are there to insist that the law is enforced, and we are there to make sure that our government upholds laws rather than doing criminal war crime violations, which they are doing at drone bases like Hancock Airfield. And since we are insisting that they uphold the law, there is a problem because they won't. None of the officials will speak to us, and subsequently they arrest us. But it's not our intent to get arrested. It is our intent to insist that the law is upheld and that our government cease and desist with its war crimes.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about some of the issues that you've been protesting. Let's start with the drone issue. Why do you choose that issue to protest?
Well, one of the immediate reasons is because it's killing people. It's killing women, it's killing men, it's killing children, and because it is so wildly out of control. There are a number of different problems with the program. The first of which I will speak of is bug splat. There is a program called BugSplat, computer software, and it is a program that was developed to minimize collateral damage, i.e. dead civilians. However, given the title of the program, its insensitivity towards recognizing that these are human beings, you can see we're off to a very bad start. Secondly, BugSplat is a term just referred to casualties. That's what they look like on the screens. Some of the people, when they're blown to bits, they look like BugSplat.
Seems kind of inhuman to me.
Yeah, there's a callous disregard, but it gets even worse. Well, maybe it doesn't get worse, but it's equally as bad. And part of it is because we kill by metadata. We track people by cell phones, for example. And if you happen to be in a certain cell phone network and the possessor of that cell phone, without them knowing who you are, if that made its way into their program, you could be killed with a drone strike because you happen to have that cell phone or cell phone number. And we kill by what is termed signature killings. Signature killings would ordinarily be thought of as killing by profile. Certain profiles set up. We don't know who you are, but you meet a profile, we kill you.
I don't think most people realize that. I think I read something like 90% of the people that are actually killed by the drones are civilians.
Yes, that's one of the recent figures, and lately the callous disregard and the inaccuracy and disregard for the drone analysis information given to the pilots is high too. There's a new film out called National Bird, and it discusses all of this. 3 or 4 drone operators, people in working within the system. I think 2 of them were analysts, and would determine who's in the group of people that they're observing, and then they would pass this information along, and often the information that they gave would be disregarded. So if they saw women and children in the group, someone higher up would say, no, that's not so, and these people would then subsequently be killed. And then it would turn out that they were innocent civilians, women and children. And we have a record of killing, wedding parties, funeral processions, people returning from pilgrimages, and just having village or tribal councils. And we have a long record at this point. We also do something called double tapping. Double tapping is when a target is struck, and then a group of people come, first responders. So it might be your friends and neighbors who come to help, or it might be the firemen and police. And then they shoot a second missile or drop a second bomb and wipe out the second group of people, because there might be somebody who is also a valid target in the second group. So part of the problem, a huge part of the problem is we don't actually know who we're killing anymore, and we don't know why we're killing them. So this is wildly out of control.
Well, I think some of our viewers might not know that Hancock Air Base in Syracuse, New York is one of the points where the pilots for the drone operation that's killing people in the Middle East are located. Now, John's been involved in several protests at Hancock Air Force Base over the years. I know most recently on Good Friday, you held a protest. Could you talk a little bit about that protest, John?
Sure. There's a couple of protests I'd like to mention. One was a nativity protest before Christmas, where we set up a full nativity scene, and then we did a Good Friday action. The nativity scene was an epiphany. On October 16th, I was sitting in Quaker meeting. I worshiped with the Quakers, and I had a vision, and I was asking, into the silence, what does America still care about? Is there anybody they still care about? And in the silence, the answer was Jesus. So then I was given this vision of a full nativity scene, and I realized it was to be set up in front of the gateway for Hancock Airfield. So I talked to a number of Quakers, and then I talked to a priest, a Catholic priest, and everybody thought this was a good idea. And so we developed a complete nativity scene, dressed in costumes. I was St. Joseph. We had Mary, a bale of hay for a manger, and a big backdrop with sheep and kind of a hallmark setting, and we set it up, and the tagline was, if Herod had drones, Jesus, Joseph, and Mary would have been incinerated. So we did this action, and it brought a lot of attention to both the base, and we were on Democracy Now!, and it also encouraged other people to become more active, and brought home the idea that Christianity as a whole is supposed to embody certain values of love God and love your neighbor, and stop killing each
Thou
other.
shalt not kill, right?
So that's the religion. For the first 1,000 years, more or less, people who were Christian were pacifists, God bless them, and refrained from killing.
And some still do.
And unfortunately, most religions, today in America, mainstream religions support war, whether they're Christian, Protestant, Jewish, whatever. Most mainstream religions are supporting war, and as a Christian, I object. This is not what is Jesus was about, or the Beatitudes. Just isn't. So we wanted to bring this message home at Christmas time, and we did this action, and then subsequently we, it just became a natural to do a crucifixion Good Friday action, and we did. We set up drone crosses, and we had people in orange jumpsuits and black hoods on the cross, and then we had other crosses with drones crucify, and drones crucify love, drones crucify the rule of law, drones crucify U.S. treaties, drones crucify community, and whatever. I mean, we had a list that was a mile long with things going wrong in America today, and all of the people, it could have been, and and I wish it had been drones crucify people of color. Drones crucify the environment. And how this is all connected is, and it might be clearer if I said war crucifies, but either way it works. And the reason I'm connecting all of these dots is because when you look at war, you see that war is the greatest degrader of the environment in the world today, bar none. War and preparation for war, with all of the militarism and all of the destruction going on. So if you want to save your environment, if you want to stop destabilizing it, you have to stop war. John F. Kennedy back in the 60s said, you know, if we don't end war, war will end us. And I'm thinking at that time he was thinking more about the Cuban Missile Crisis and nuclear weapons, because that was a major event, and we narrowly averted a nuclear war. But in any case, at this point in time, we are seeing the climate so thoroughly degraded, and global warming and climate change increasing, and the carbon parts per million reached over 412, and there's going to be massive climate instability, and the oceans are going to rise, and all of this is well plotted out by science and established, and we're watching it slowly unveil itself, but it's accelerating. So if you don't end war, you're not going to have a meaningful program to stabilize the climate, and it will end us indirectly. And the prediction models now predict that in 100 years' time, we will be down to 1 billion people, and that's from approximately 7 billion people right now. So that is huge. But not only that, I mean, more immediately, what is war doing to us? It militarizes our police department.
That's true.
You know, it takes money, 54 billion more for war, and we're cutting the Environmental Protection Agency, according to Mr. Trump, and health care, and money for education, and money for arts, and money for you know, NPR, and everything that, you know, infrastructure, and everything that this country actually needs, we're cutting, and we're funding something that this country doesn't need, which is a larger military.
Right. But the profits are so great for the military-industrial complex.
Yeah,
and they're so powerful.
That's another thing that truly needs to be understood, is that war has become a mechanism for transferring money from the poor and the middle class to the rich. And Smedley Butler with War is a Racket definitely laid that out way back when.
In World War I.
World War I, and Arundhati Roy has that quote, and I'm paraphrasing, but essentially it goes, at one time weapons were manufactured to fight wars, and now we manufacture wars to sell weapons.
That's so true.
And I often think, you know, Cuba's known for exporting doctors to the world, producing quality doctors and exporting them to the world. And what is it that this country is known for exporting weapons? Wouldn't it be amazing? Wouldn't it be beautiful if we were exporting doctors to the world?
Right, or clean water.
Or clean water. You know, I wrote that little poem for the flyer that we're using, and it went 54 billion more for war, polluted water for the poor, hunger knocking at the door, while billionaires make a big score. America, stand up and say no more. Well, it's time people stand up and say no more.
It's true.
So we're talking about civil disobedience and civil resistance actions. So why do I do this? You know, look, the country started with civil disobedience, Boston Tea Party, and all of the good things that civil resistance and civil disobedience have accomplished. If you don't think it's accomplished anything, think about the Underground Railroad and the abolition of slavery and the women's right to vote. If you don't think of anything that it's accomplished, think of the union workers going out and striking and protesting for worker safety and you know, increased wages and creating a middle class. It's ended the war in Vietnam. It certainly has helped in limiting somewhat the nuclear testing and nuclear resistance program, and it's helping with the environment today in so many ways. And thank all those people out in the Dakotas and for the DAPL protest.
Let me just ask you, how do you think President Trump has changed things? Is your activism any different now than it was before Trump was elected? Or is it more-
Mine personally, I think he's energized a lot of people, because one of the things that's so important is, and has been missing is that people feeling like they're oppressed, you know. A friend of mine, Steve Wickham, actually asked me once, do you know any movement that has succeeded, nonviolent movement, that the people who were protesting were not the direct recipients of violence? And I thought about it, and I said, no, you know, honestly, I don't have a good example. But in the civil rights, you know, the people who were protesting were the direct recipients of oppression and the violence. And now thanks to Trump, that we have a lot of people feeling oppressed and beginning to wake up and recognize that, yes, you are oppressed, and it's time to get up and stand up and perform civil resistance actions. You know, I'm preaching the gospel of sedition today, because I don't want you to obey unlawful authority. I want you to get out there and throw your body on the gears and the levers of the machine, as Mario Savio said, and make it stop, because we're killing people all over the world. You know, drone strikes oppress people of color and Muslims primarily. So if you care about Muslims and people of color, sure, you could get involved with the drone program, but if you don't want that militarized police department, if you don't want your environment collapsing, if you want quality education for your children, oppose war, oppose this government. And tell that to your Democratic senators, by the way, as well, and Congress people and representatives, because they're heads and tails of the same damn coin. And the whole coin is really awful. It is dreadful. So if I have a message to my representatives, let's start caring about humanity. Let's start looking at the working class. Let's stop catering to the rich and taking money from the poor and giving it to the rich.
Okay. It sounds like you get a lot of your inspiration from your religious belief. Would
Yeah,
you
I have
agree with that?
Yeah, I'd say that's true. You know, I
your
hadn't
faith.
realized how much my activism is spiritually based, and while I'm infused with some energy and a bit of anger this afternoon, I mean, there's a lot of love in it too, because we really, you know, what I'm saying is we really have to care for each other and start taking care of the common good, and that's all of us.
Well, while we're talking about that, you did another event recently on Good Friday at Hancock Airfield. Could you describe that?
Sure. That's when we set up three large drones and had the people in the orange jumpsuits and the hoods representing, you know, alluding to the Good Friday crucifixion, and then all of the factors that America is crucifying, which I mentioned, you know, before. And we were subsequently arrested and charged with, in this case, disorderly and trespass. And
Could you talk a little more about that? How often for people that don't know, people who haven't been to a protest, how often are protesters arrested? And then if they are arrested, what happens?
well, it depends on the protest. We're given a warning, and you can leave if you wish. If you are arrested,
Usually you get a warning before you get arrested.
yeah, usually, not always. Sometimes they just have arrested us, and but usually you get a warning, and if you are disinclined to be arrested, you just cross the street. And after you're arrested, you are handcuffed and brought to a police station normally. Sometimes, depending on the amount of people, you'll sit in a cell inside or in a police car. It depends on the day. Last time we were cited and released, given an appearance ticket, and so my first appearance for this Good Friday action will be on May 9th in DeWitt Town Court, and there I will plead innocent. Other times you're arraigned immediately. At times they've been punitive and set exorbitant bail, and at other times you're left to go on your own recognizance.
Okay, we've got about 10 minutes left. This recent event on Good Friday got national press coverage. Why do you think it did? Normally these events don't get that kind of coverage, do they? What's different now, or what was different about this event?
Well, One of the things that I would advise to everybody who is working on some sort of civil resistance or working on any issue, that is important to you, create good images, because it's the media stock and trade is images. So if you have good pictures, there's a much improved chance that it will be used. Also create your own video, have your own videographers, and send them the materials. There's not a lot of money left in the media in many, because of the cut in advertising revenues from online advertising. So provide them with the materials they need and the storyline in a timely way. And all of that increases. But I think also there's, I think there's an upheaval in the country at this point, and people are truly upset with the direction of the country.
I think they are.
And I think also that we need to look at the people who voted in Trump were actually the same people, most of them, who voted in Obama and wanted change and didn't get it, and they voted in Bush before him and wanted change and got shafted, and right on down the line, because the government, either party, is not improving the country, it's catering to the wealthy.
And it seems to be war either way, endless war.
Endless war. And the people in a lot of states, in the southern states, there's no work to speak of. Their children are dying of drug overdoses, opiate overdoses, heroin. There's a real crisis, and change is desperately needed, so they voted for Trump for change. They're hurt, and they're angry people and working class, and unfortunately they made a very bad choice. But it is an understandable choice, since Hillary had basically offered more of the same. So it might have some ways been a little bit better with her. Hard to say, but certainly the election of Trump has activated lots of people to take an interest in the government and in their society again. And we're out marching, and we're out seeing our representatives. We're out, doing what we can to save what's left of the environment, and that's important, because we need everybody working together and out there telling the government it's time to change, it's long overdue, and it has to be now. And change will not come from the rich, and change will not come from a system that's designed to preserve itself. So if you want it changed, we the people are the people who are going to do it.
Well, let's go back to the event on Good Friday. So tell us about how were the people that were arrested? How did that occur? Was that an orderly situation? And do you expect to go to jail for this?
We all sign a pledge of nonviolence and are very civil and orderly. We often have a very good relationship with the police, as good as it might be. And actually, we discussed tactics with them when they released us, and they had some recommendations for us on locations we might go to.
So some of them are sort of supportive of what you're doing. Is that what you're saying?
Some of them are. There was an interesting story. There was two men in a cell inside, and I'm paraphrasing, but a policeman came up to the cell and said to the one of our people, he said, you guys should be out fishing or at the beach. And the man he spoke to said, well, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be sitting in your jail cell, but there are mitigating circumstances. And then a second police officer walked up and said to the first police officer, he said, you would be out fishing, but he has a conscience, and that's why he's here.
That really is a compliment.
Yeah, it was quite amazing, sweet, as my friend James said, and it was sweet. And so yeah, we are creating a dialogue, and more people are becoming aware. And it is because, of the drone protesters doing civil resistance to a large degree that any of this discussion is actually happening. We need to stop killing each other. We need to stop doing it here. We need to stop doing it there. When we do it overseas, when we think we can, with impunity, destroy countries, destabilize the environment, and disregard the value of their lives, same thing comes back to us. And we're seeing it now with our militarized police departments, with government officials finding it okay to poison people with polluted water, and a whole host of other environmental and civil concerns that we have in this country.
Well, we've got less than 5 minutes now. Let's talk a little bit about some of the other things that you've worked on and organizations you belong to, and how can people watching maybe get more involved?
Yeah. One of the organizations that I think is terrific and I'm a member of is Veterans for Peace, and go to veteransforpeace.org. We have veterans membership and we have associate membership, so if you're a non-veteran, you can certainly join us, and we welcome you, and we'll be glad to have you as part of the organization. And another thing I'd like to say, women are so vitally important to the peace movement, and we have tremendously courageous leaders, Medea Benjamin, Kathy Kelly, Ann Wright, to name just 3 of them, and there are a whole host of other people who I'm not mentioning. But
well, local people as
local
well.
people,
there are many local people involved in
right?
protesting war.
Maud Easter,
all the Women Against War,
Women Against
Upper
War,
Hudson Peace Action.
Right. We have tremendous organizations here too, and they can be joined. And you could contact Trudy or myself, and we're all online, all over the place.
Now, how about the Interfaith Alliance?
The Interfaith Alliance, right? I'm a
about
member
that.
of the Interfaith Alliance of New York State, and it's a good organization. And again, just Google it, and you'll pull up a website or a Facebook page.
The conference that you hold every summer in Fonda.
Right,
could you-
August 18th and 19th this year at the Kateri Shrine.
Talk a little bit about what happens at the conference. What's that all about?
Friday morning we have a spiritual retreat for grounding and centering for those people who enjoy spiritual retreats, and it's usually somewhat politically oriented too. And then the conference discusses different issues, and they may range from certainly war and peace issues, be it drones or nuclear warfare, sometimes Israel-Palestine. We also have discussed healthcare, single payer. We last year had an paleontologist speak on environmental change, and we'll cover a wide variety of issues and concerns of the day.
We've got just 2 minutes left. So there's a spiritual component to that as well, right?
Yes, there is.
Okay. We didn't talk about the Creech Air Force Base in Nevada and the annual event there. Do you want to say anything about that to
Just
wind
quickly,
things up?
there are a number of drone bases all over the country at this point where we are killing people from, and they pull the trigger at Creech Air Force Base, and they do it at Hancock. Each time we create a new base, we are creating a new part of the battlefield, and these cities actually, whether they're aware of it or not, or and currently are way behind the lines for sure, but they do become part of the battlefield. And when you embrace flying killer robotic machines, you are degrading your community and yourself. But there is hope, there is resistance, we are part of it. Any one of you can do marvelous things. We're all tremendously capable people, and just get up and start working for the cause that you find resonates with you, whether it is simply picking up trash along the roadside. That's a help. But help the homeless, work against war, find ways of creating literacy, and resist the corruption and the killing and the war machine.
Thank you very much, John. It's such a privilege to have you here today. You're doing such powerful, important work. Did you have one final thing you wanted to say?
No, I just wanted to say thanks for having me,
Oh.
and you're doing powerful, important work too, and the show certainly is part of it and spreads the word far and wide, so it's much appreciated by the entire peace community. So thank you.
Well, thank you, and good luck in court for the most recent protest at Hancock Field, and the work out
Yeah.
there I think is really, really important.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing. for all of my arrests, which, you know, it's not really all that many, it's somewhere around 17 now, I haven't spent a night in jail. I've won all my trials.
Well, that's hopeful. That's hopeful
So
right there.
stop being so afraid. Get out there and speak your mind. Tell the truth. Be compassionate. Work with integrity and kindness, and learn how to cooperate with each other so that we can make this country the country we want it to be, one that is respectful of all people and treats everyone with dignity and compassion.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for joining us.